myself, what I've studied, where I've worked, and how I got to be where I am now as a business manager at the Foundation for Research, Science and Technology. I've been at the Foundation for about 3 years, and I've mainly been involved in investments that the Foundation makes in companies through the TechNZ schemes, and specifically for companies which is funding for companies to do R&D. And because of my background, I've mainly been focused in the biotech sector. However, more recently I've been getting involved in the large funding rounds at the universities and CRI's bid, and the results of those were announced last month. So, how did I get to where I am now? I grew up in Palmerston North and started my education at Massey University. Yes, I'm from Palmy and I'm proud of it. Even when I was back at school, I found I had a really strong preference for English and, for maths and science. I like to be able to get the right answer, figure it out, know that it was right, none of this English waffly stuff. So I started off doing a pretty general science degree at Massey, and it was actually my second year when I did a biochemistry paper, and it just really clicked for me. I really liked learning and understanding how things worked, and the whole glycolysis and TCA cycle, the number of moles of ATP produced, that's the maths side coming into it. I just really enjoyed it. And so I carried on and finished my degree and then did a master's. And so I spent a couple of years in the good old science towers here at Massey University, in the Twilight Zone, which the lab was called. So it was actually quite ironic though that I carried on down a path, that I wanted because I didn't like all the English stuff, which actually at the end of the time when I had to write up my master's thesis wasn't much fun because I had to actually do that writing stuff. So once I finished my master's, I went on to get a job in the university in the Institute for Molecular Biosciences. I worked as a research assistant and I was there for a couple of years working on Candida albicans and the trigger to germ tube formation. Sometimes doing science work can be quite hard and you feel like things never work and why am I doing this? But then the moment that something works is just the best feeling ever. I had one evening I was isolating an enzyme and trying to see if it had activity, and I sort of did a whole lot of assays and I found it had activity. And I was like, so I stayed on, did it again, and it just really is the most amazing feeling in the world. And so I think science, it is really, really rewarding. After my time at university, I moved just across the road to the New Zealand Dairy Research Institute, where I was a technical officer there. I was there working in a team characterising a probiotic bacteria, and it was a good environment to be in. We had different targets that we had to characterise and quite a lot of deadlines and stuff like that. So it was a really fun team to work in, a really good environment. But of course, as all good Kiwis do, it was time for me to put on my backpack and head away from my OE. And so I ended up working in an investment bank as an obvious step for someone with a Master's in Biochemistry. I decided I just wanted to do something different, and I thought probably it sounded a bit glamorous even, and so I managed to get a job at JP Chase. I actually got the job through a friend, and it was the easiest interview ever. It's, look, I don't know anything about banking, but I can learn, and I can learn fast, so, can you give me a job? But also it shows the values of the network. I would never have got my foot in the door if my friend hadn't sort of put me forward for the job. And although I had a science background, actually having a bit of paper that shows that you can learn was really important. So I had a crazy about 3 years there in an environment that was high pressure, deadlines constantly, and unimaginable amounts of money. I also had the opportunity to spend about 2 months in New York with the company, and it was just great fun. But at the end of the day, I got to the point that banking really wasn't for me. I didn't feel like I was doing anything useful, and I also missed the science part of my brain, and I wasn't using that. And so it's time for me to come back home. Did a little bit of banking here in New Zealand, but that wasn't quite right. And so I actually went to a recruitment consultant, and said, look, halt, I've got this science that I actually really, really enjoy and I'm missing it a lot, but I've also got this banking experience, is there anything that I can do that would maybe use both of them? And so that's how I ended up at the foundation. So I'll give you a bit of background about the foundation. The foundation is a Crown entity governed by a board appointed by the Minister of Research, Science and Technology. We invest approximately $500 million per annum in research. We've got 100 staff in Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch. And we've also got some staff in Tauranga and Blenheim. And our mission is actively growing value for New Zealand by investing for results from research and development. So just a little bit of an overview of how the government funds science in New Zealand and where the foundation sits in. MORS, the Ministry of Research, Science and Technology, provide advice to the government, and they also, the funds they receive from the government are then invested by the Health Research Council, Royal Society and Foundation for Research, Science and Technology. These three agencies cover a broad spectrum of government investment in RS&T, from speculative and novel research to exploring new ideas, generating new knowledge, and to making more applied investments. And the foundation is the largest investor in dollar terms of the government's vote RS&T funding. MORS gets approximately $725 million per annum, and we have about $536 million of that to give out. There are other government agencies that also receive government funding, like agriculture, forestry, fisheries, and so we look to work with those agencies to ensure that we have alignment of investment strategies and where appropriate manage these investment processes. We also work alongside New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, particularly with firms that we fund through our Tech NZ schemes. So who do we fund? The majority of what we fund is in CRIs, but we do fund a big proportion in New Zealand universities and also the private sector. This one's a little bit more tricky, but these are sort of the different pots of money that we have to support different areas. So, for example, we have environmental research, we have Māori knowledge and developmental research, we've got supporting promising individuals. However, our biotech funding tends to be through the three portfolios: New Economy Research Fund, Technology New Zealand, and Research for Industry. So of the $500 million per annum that the foundation invests, approximately 20% of that is in biotech. So here are just some examples. The foundation has invested in hawk researchers' kiwifruit breeding program, the largest in the world, and it's based at their research orchards in Te Puke and Ruaka. The new yellow flesh cultivar, which is now known as Zespri Gold, was produced from this program, and it's now the third most valuable horticultural export from New Zealand. The program aims to produce other commercially successful green-fleshed and yellow-flesh cultivars, and some novel types, including some with eel skins. We're supporting a research program at Scion that is characterising the genes and mechanisms controlling aspects of cell wall development. And also, they're evaluating the potential effects of GM in the context of plantation forestry to identify, quantify environmental and economic risks associated with the technology, as well as the ability to deliver improved outcomes for Māori